All right, today we're going to take a look at which process should you use AI on in your team. I'm going to be taking a few lessons that I've learned in building AI agents that actually take critical processes down from hours to a few minutes and having applied them in production. And so here today, I think whatever we're going to talk about today will apply pretty well, whether or not you're a business owner or potentially a department lead and you manage a team and you're wondering, look, people have been telling me that AI is all the rage and will change and solve all my problems, but you haven't felt it, which is expected. Maybe you've started actually looking at, purchasing ChatGPT licenses. Maybe you actually have purchased those and you sent them to your team and you're like, okay, folks, start using this, and you didn't get the value. I know this because I trained people in really large companies that actually bought licenses for ChatGPT, Claude, and just told their folks like, hey, start using it. We were there to train them, but even training them sometimes wasn't enough. Some people had a natural curiosity to use those tools, so they had like a better ROI, better return on investment. Some of them didn't have, right? So even if you trained them, it was making a difference, but it wasn't making like this 10x difference that we were promised. And after having done this, I actually saw the true way to get value from AI is you have to kind of take it seriously and actually create and actually focus your efforts on solving one or automating part or whole of a process, but one process at a time. Before doing this, we have to figure out which process should you use AI on in your team. And so we're going to actually take a look at two main things that we want to do. And the first one is actually going to be more important. So the first thing is business constraints. Now, this essentially means that you should not be focusing your efforts on applying or automating a process with AI if there's no business constraints. Now, what this means is that to say, usually that kind of ranks in two different buckets. It either is a demand problem, so that means you don't have enough clients or leads coming in, or a supply problem. Now, it is a supply problem if I tell you like, hey, tomorrow, if I double your clients and you now have double the clients that you have, are you going to be able to actually handle this as an agency or whatever business you are? If you say no, that's a supply problem. That means you don't have the resources, your business is not fit to actually supply, or your team is not fit to actually supply all those clients. If you say no, then that's probably a demand. It's either that or the other, right? Depending on the use case. So if you say, for example, that you want to use AI in a supply process, so after the client has actually closed and decided to work with you, but actually your problem is a demand problem because you don't have enough clients to get into the pipeline, then that's just going to be useless. And what happens if you actually try to automate a process that is not constraining the business? Then first of all, you're going to spend a lot of time, money, energy on doing this, and you're not really going to feel that value that you get after that, right? Because typically our use case is sometimes when we go to clients and we tell them like, hey, we can cut down the process of creating your price quotes in a few minutes. On the paper, it sounds good for them, but some of our clients actually have the problem where they have all the time in the world to create price quotes, to price their projects, but they don't have enough clients coming in. So even if they had this, they would save time, but they would still have a lot of time in front of them. So, it just turns out that even if you have a solution to automate a process, if it's not constraining the business, you're not going to feel the value from it. And it can also frustrate your team because they're like, we're spending all this money, energy, and effort, and for them, it's going to be a lot of effort into a process that is not really making any difference in that case. So the main big thing is going to be to actually have this business constraint as the first kind of issue that you want to solve or you want to focus on. And I would say after you decide this, you say, okay, well, our problem is our ability to answer bids, right? So clients or prospects are coming in and they're saying like, hey, how much would it take to actually do this project? And for whatever reason, our process to send those bids is too slow. Sometimes it's just overcrowded. And so we are not able to even answer those bids. And so that would be a good focus point, right? Just to say, okay, well, let's actually automate the process to answer bids or submit offers. I guess maybe we can call it that, submit offers. So build the offer and actually then submit it. That's going to be the process that we're going to focus on here today. I'm going to say this is constraining, so we want to focus on this. Well, then you have to decide how feasible it is to actually automate this AI process. So now the next thing is the feasibility. I'm not going to put it in red because in reality, it's not so much like, is it yes or no? Like yes or no, because that's not exactly what it is. Usually, it's always feasible. It's just how much feasible is it? So there you go. I put how much here. How feasible is it to automate the AI process? And then this is where we're going to have a few different criteria. Now, this is not like the exhaustive list of criteria, but it's going to be something that actually guides us to actually get to the point of like, okay, well, we're going to understand how feasible it is to actually automate this whole thing. And so we're going to ask the question like, how documentable is it? And how documented is it as well? So sometimes it's also already documented. So if the process there is already documented, like the question of how do you build offers actually, and there is some documentation, then that's going to save some time here as well. It could also be how reviewable is going to be the process here. And so how reviewable will say, okay, well, the user, the expert that will be using the AI to actually automate this process will be able to review the output of the AI pretty well, because one of our thesis is always to say that AI is always is never owning the output. It's the user actually using the AI owning the output. So AI can help out, but it can never own an output. So it has to be reviewable in that capacity. So how reviewable, how easy is it to review the process? For example, for building offers, a big part of building offers is to create price quotes. And in that case, you can actually review the price quote and see maybe like how the price quote was created. Maybe you can actually look at this. So how documentable, how documented, how reviewable is it? And then you can also have how connectable. It's not a great word here, but that would be the question of like, okay, well, our offers are actually stored in a CRM. Then does that mean that we have to connect to the CRM? Does that mean that we need to be able to export maybe files that we then upload to a CRM? How much work is it needed to actually connect to all those things? And so you can see here when we work with clients, it's less so like, yes, the feasibility is a yes or no, because that's not exactly how it is. It's more a question of, okay, well, how feasible is it? Like how much work is it going to be? And you can pretty much automate parts of any kind of process, but sometimes some processes are more complex than the other. So sometimes the kind of ratio of value compared to the cost that it will be in terms of energy, money, and time is sometimes not worth it. So that's why you can actually decide to do it. So this is kind of how we take a look at is it a business constraint? It's the first thing. If it's not a business constraint, we don't go at it. It could be the case that once you have a lot of different processes automated with AI, maybe you can actually, let you loose on processes that are no longer business constraints, but usually that's not going to be ideal, and you want to actually show value and get to the point of like time to value in your AI automation, which is going to be very important here. So say like, okay, well, I invested this amount of money, energy, and time into automating this process. I'm expecting to see in some capacity this process lifting business constraints. And then of course the question is, how feasible is it? So it's never yes or no, it's more how much is it? And then there's a list of different criteria. We could add more criteria here, but I want to keep it simple here to answer this question of which process should you use AI on in your team, be it if you're a business owner's department lead or in some other capacity where you're managing or leading a team that handles a process that might be constrained for whatever reason.